Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create one of these bowls. So I'm not going to show you the exact type of bowl, but I am going to do it basically with the exact same technique, but I will be doing it in different colours. So this one obviously had red alcohol inks, and then the background has brown alcohol inks, and you'll understand more about that later on. And I basically reversed it on the back, so this is the brown alcohol inks and that has the red, and the background has the red alcohol inks. This one, basically the exact same brown alcohol inks in the background as this side of the bowl, and then I used some green alcohol inks on the leaves. Then I did the same on the back, just used a lighter green. So play around with it and see what you can do. So I've got a large bowl and a small bowl, and these were used using these bases. So you can see it, this one sits quite nicely in this bowl, so this is the size. And then this one was a tiny little ring dish sort of a bowl, so you can see that sits quite nicely in there. So I'm going to be doing an in-between today using this bowl. So what you're going to need to get started is a sheet of pearl white that was rolled out on your thickest setting. So this is probably about 4 to 5 millimeters thick, but it doesn't really matter. Just start with your thickest setting and that will be fine. And I'm using pearl white primer. Then you want to take one side and start pressing it into the bowl. And press quite firmly because you want it to stick to the base of your bowl, because this will prevent air bubbles later on. So I'm keeping this side open so that I'm pushing the air out. So you can see I'm pressing around the sides and I'm pressing along the base as well. Okay. And now this uses up quite a bit of clay. This sheet here is actually an entire block of Primo white that I've rolled out. So this project does use up quite a bit of clay. Just to tell you in advance. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently bend this clay over once I have pressed it in nicely, so that I keep everything where it's supposed to go, and then I'll check to see if I have any issues, and I don't see any. So then I'm going to just gently use my finger and smooth out. And now these are little finger cots that I got from eBay because the gloves were driving me a little bit mad, and they're actually much better than the gloves. They have a smoother finish, and so smoothing out with these is much better. So I'm just busy smoothing out fingerprints, because we want a fairly smooth surface to start with. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but you don't want fingerprints and things all over the place. Then turn this upside down and peel this back. I just peeled it, I put it into the place that it was so that I could smooth off, and now we're going to trim it off. So you'll just take your blade, it's a little craft knife, and pressing against the side of your bowl, trim around to get rid of the excess. And this doesn't have to be perfectly perfect, but try to get as close as you can. Okay, and then what I like to do is I just like to take my finger and pull it over the edges a little bit, and then we can trim it later on. So it's just overlapping the edges a little bit. Okay, so just check the back here, see if you can see a lip on all sides. There we go. And then have a look for air bubbles, and just if you have any, you can either try to smooth it out through the top, or you can just poke with your tissue blade, or not tissue blade, your craft knife, and squeeze it out and then smooth up that crack. but it's important to get rid of all the air bubbles. So if you see any, here's another one, and I'm just going to push it into one spot so hopefully you can see there's an air bubble there. Just poke. And smooth it out. And then you want to smooth that crack, you don't want that there. Okay, so I think that's all the air bubbles. So now we're going to bring over the leaves. And so you'll want to go through your garden and choose a bunch of leaves that has really nice veining. So I've got a nice vine of leaves here, as you can see. And you can see on the back here they put some really nice veining. And so you want to look for leaves where you can really feel those veins. So I'm just going to pop that back over here. I'm just going to pick one and show you it compared to another one that won't work. So here's the one that we have here, and so hopefully you can see the veins on there. It's going to produce a nice lot of veins, and also the edges are quite interesting. You want to look for an interesting leaf. Then here's one that's not going to work as far as the veins go. So I can run my finger over here and it's completely smooth, and if I twist it around you can see that there is very little veins. The only one that's really going to show up in the clay is this one, and the edges aren't exactly that interesting. So you're going to be looking for this. So a mint leaf is a good example of veining that would work. A tomato leaf as well works really well, but you want to look for something with really prominent veins. Okay, so then you'll bring over leaves like that, and you'll take them, put them vein side down into your bowl, and then press from one side of the leaf to the other. Don't be pressing all over, you want to press from one side to the other. And be quite firm because it's going to want to lift up from the clay. And make sure you get all the little bits of the leaf and get stuck down firmly, like that. And then you want to vary your sizes of the leaf. So this is what I like about this plant, not all the leaves are the exact same shape. That one's a little big for my liking. Bring over a different one. Here we go. And if you can find two types of leaves that have nice veins, you could mix up the types of leaves. So you could have more than one type in here, but these are the only ones that I really like. Any other leaves looked a little bit not great compared to them. I've just got an air bubble there, I do believe, so I'm just going to gently push that out. Okay. And then you just want to decide where you want the leaves. You want them fairly close to each other, but not too close, because we're going to be putting some texture in here between the leaves. So just press your leaves down first, cover the entire surface if you can, including these overlaps over here. And it doesn't matter if your leaves hanging off like that, that's perfectly fine. Just cover the entire bowl with leaves, and then I'll show you how to apply your texture. Okay, so here is what it should look like once you're done. So you can see that I like to start with larger leaves in the middle and work my way out to smaller leaves, as I think that makes it look more interesting. And it also means it draws your eye towards the middle because there's one big object there, and then you slowly go out towards the outside, and that's how I like it. So now what we need to do is we need to put in some texture. So I found these scrapbooking papers, and this is just one of them, and you can see it's kind of got this nice knitted texture, which is a really nice texture. You can use sandpaper or any other texture that you happen to find, but I like this one. So I've just cut out a little square of it, which makes it easier for me to press this texture in. And you really want to press it in well. Just the thing is, you need to be careful not to break your leaves, because you can do that sometimes if you press a little too hard with this. So just go and press it in amongst all of those gaps between the leaves. And just make sure that you do it nice and deep, because that's what's going to create the effect. Areas that haven't got a very deep texture aren't going to capture the effect as nicely as you could. And then you want to try and avoid overlapping the texture with the texture again, because it can look a little weird, but don't stress about it too much. So I'll do that up until these rims so that the entire piece is textured. Okay, so now it's all textured and nice. So now we're ready to start colouring in the areas between the leaves, because this will make it a lot easier than lifting up the leaves and then trying to colour it while the leaves are exposed. So the leaves are going to, to some extent, protect the clay underneath from getting coloured, and this is why you want to press that clay in as best you can. So colours I want to use today are teak wood, espresso, and latte. So I'm going to start with the lightest colour first, which is the latte. I'm just going to put those off to the side. I'm just going to drop a fair amount onto the tile, and then I'm going to spray it with some 99% alcohol, which it lightens it a bit more, and it also means that it lasts longer. It's like adding water to paint. It does make the colour lighter though, but it makes it more fluid as well, I find. And so this is our base coat. And you want to add quite a bit. You don't want to be brushing it thin, because you want it to almost highlight the texture. So you want almost pools of liquid to form inside your texture. And this is why I like making it this liquid sort of consistency. It's a really watery consistency. And so you can see that it gets used up quite quickly, and you have to use it quite quickly as well, because it dries up pretty quickly. So just go around, and you don't want to be sopping wet so that it seeps under the leaves. You just want it wet enough that it's going to colour nicely and it's going to spread easily over the clay. And once it starts to dry up, just add maybe a few more drops of your colour, and then add some more alcohol, and then stir it in. And then continue until you've painted your entire surface. There we are, so you can see that's all painted. Now I'm going to bring over the teak wood, and I'm going to just drop that in the same place as the latte was. And I'm just going to give that a quick spray to extend it. And then mix that in, and it doesn't matter if the two alcohol inks mix, that's perfectly fine. Okay, now with this one, we only want to paint it in some areas, so just streak it around like this. Don't be precise at all, just streak. And what this will do is it will give it some shading and some interest. And we'll do the same with the espresso in a minute. And then we can start blending it. And you could do this with paint as well, I guess. I haven't tried it with paint, but I do presume you could do the same thing with paint. It probably would be harder. I definitely think that alcohol ink is a lot easier to work with than paint in this instance, but you could definitely try using paint. Yeah, I'll just mix that up a little bit more. Brush it around. And don't forget to get these edges as well. Okay, and I think we've got enough now. Just put that down. and I'll just pop some of the espresso there, and this is a bit darker. So again, I'm going to just drop that around, and I haven't thinned this one because I want this to be a nice dark colour. And then what we'll do is we'll bring over that latte again, and we'll blend this together. Because right now it looks a bit spotty and patched and things, which you might like, but personally I think it's better to blend it together a bit and get it all nice and shaded. There we are, I'm happy with that. Just one more spot here. Don't like these really bright gold areas. Okay. Then I'll just bring over a wet wipe and I'll just clean my brush a bit. And then wipe away most of that. Okay, then we'll bring this over again and we'll use this to blend. So I'll spray a bit of that there, and I'll bring this over and thin that out. And then just go around with it in a nice swirling motion. And you want this quite wet when you do this. And I'm working quickly, not because I'm stressed or anything, but because I want this, because the alcohol inks dry fairly quickly, and so you do have to work quite fast with them for it to work. Because you can see that's drying up already, and so it's just better to work quickly. And there you can see that it's all blending together nicely. And if you rub on a spot for a little bit, you'll clear out the alcohol ink over there, because you'll actually lift it up onto the brush. So if you want some areas that are a little lighter, just rub and you'll leave alcohol ink basically in the texture. Okay, let me just spray some more here. Just continue until you're happy that you've kind of blended it together, so it doesn't look like there's a sudden jump between colours. Just want it all blended so that you have just different shades, but they all seem to be one colour. So I'm almost done. That one leaf is lifting up. Okay, now I'm just going to look around to see how it looks. And I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, so I'll leave that off there and I'll clean this up. There we are. Now we'll just go with our blade and lift these up, and you can see it, that leaf lifted up a bit, and so you've got a bit of staining there. But for most part you want this white effect, where it basically has protected the clay. But you will get some staining. That's almost unavoidable because the leaves do lift up a bit. But that's fine, that adds to the effect. It's mostly these edge ones that will lift up a bit. And just use the blade to gently pick them up. Okay, one last one. And there we are. So you can even see the veins in here. You can see that they're really intricate, and that is exactly what you want. So you can see that there's definitely some staining. So you can see that there's a little bit of staining on these leaves, but mostly around the edge you have quite a bit of stains. But that's perfectly fine, it adds to the effect. So now we're ready to start with the next colour. And now I'm not trying to go for a realistic look this time round. I'm going to be using purple and blue alcohol inks, and so I'll bring those over. I have Amethyst, Purple Twilight, Sailboat Blue, and Stonewashed. And I think that's going to look quite interesting. Now, first thing I want to do is I just want to bring over that wet wipe that I've used, spray a little bit of alcohol on it, and you want to just quickly clean your brush. Water doesn't really clean your brush, you really need to be using that alcohol spray because it works pretty well. There we are. So now we're ready to start. So what I'm going to do is I want to start with a base colour of the Stonewashed, which is a pretty light colour. So I'll just pop that onto the tile, and then I'm going to spray to thin it out a bit, and then I'll just mix that in. Okay, and this is going to be our base. And there we are. So I'll just start painting, and because it's quite watery, it will spread nicely through the veins. You want to be careful not to touch the rest of, don't want to touch the outside of the leaf. You just want to be painting inside the leaf. Don't panic if you do paint outside the leaf, but it is best to not do that. Just take the alcohol ink and gently paint your leaf. There we go. And what I might do, since we need to do the back of the bowl as well once this is baked, what I might do is I might reverse this so that the blue is actually on the outside of the bowl and the brown is what the leaves will look like, which is what I did on that red bowl that I showed you earlier. So just continue to do what I'm doing here with this base coat, and if you see any stains you can gently rub them with the alcohol ink and it can lessen them a bit, just like that, but you're not going to get rid of them, but it'll look nice. So I'll continue doing this until I've painted all of the leaves. There we are. So that's what it's looking like right now. So now we want to do two different types of leaves. So one we want to make more purple, and I'm going to be using the Amethyst. I might use the Purple Twilight, it might be a little bit on the reddish side for my liking, but for now I'm just going to be using the Amethyst. Now I'm just going to drip it into the same place as the Stonewashed was put, and I'm just going to lighten that up a little bit and mix that in with the Stonewashed as well. It's okay if the colour changes a little bit. There we are. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just gently going to spot it around. I don't want it all in one area. So it's very similar to what we did to the background, where we're just going to spot areas and then we're going to blend it afterwards. But you want it nice and wet so that it spreads into these veins. There we are. And this is basically the exact same that I did for the other bowls, just with different alcohol ink colours. So you can experiment around, maybe make it a completely green one, so that it's more summer-like. This one I'm going for almost like a wintry feel. The red one was an autumn one, obviously. So just dot these around. And then what we'll do is I'll do the same with the Sailboat Blue, and then I might add the Purple Twilight. So I'll have to see. Okay, and so you can see what it looks like right now. It's looking quite interesting. Okay, so now I'll move on to the sailboat blue, and I'm just going to add it on top of this. Okay, so there we are. I did end up adding a little bit of the purple twilight, but I mixed it in with a lot of the sailboat blue and the amethyst and the stonewash that was left on the tile over here, and then I watered it down with the 99% alcohol, so very tiny amount of the purple twilight, and then I dabbed it all around here, and I made sure to cover up all the spots where I had put the stonewash. So now you have two options. You can either pop the stonewash back over here, water it down, and then paint over it like we did with the background, but I kind of like this patched effect that we have. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to leave it like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the bowl a quick spray from the 99% alcohol so that it just wets the alcohol a little bit, so that I can just dab in some areas that might be a little bit exposed, and it will also encourage it to go into the veins if it needs to. But that's basically all I am going to do. So I'm just going to pop that aside to dry, and I'm just going to clean up the tile quickly. Okay, so the final step before we pop it, before we're ready to trim and pop in the oven, is to just take a wet wipe, wrap it around your finger, spray a little puddle of alcohol, dab your finger with it, and then gently wipe. And just do this across the entire bowl. Try to avoid the leaves if you can, but if you can't, that's fine. But basically you're just trying to remove a little bit of the alcohol ink. So you can see there that it's exposing some of the ink, and this will just bring the pattern out a bit more. So I'll continue doing that until I'm happy with it, and then I'll show you how to trim. Okay, so there's what it looks like now, and you can see that some areas of the leaves have been just slightly touched, and that does add to the effect, so I do like that, and I do like to do it just a little bit. And also you can see that the basket texture has come up a bit more. So now what I want to do is I want to just turn it upside down, place my hand on it to hold it in place, and then bring the knife around to gently trim away this excess. Now just move that out the way. Now what I like to do is I like to actually hold the knife in place and then twist the bowl. And then I do that around a few times to make sure that I got everything. But that keeps it basically on the same tilt, so that it's even the whole way around. There we go. Move that out the way, and then I'll just brush off the tops here. Okay. And then just take your finger and gently smooth around the top so that you don't have a really sharp edge. Just like that. Let me get rid of that. There we are. So that's what the edge looks like at the moment. And just check it to make sure you're happy with it. And then we can pop in the oven for 40 minutes at Primo's recommended temperature. And you'll notice that the alcohol inks dull just slightly in the oven, and that's a good thing in this case because it makes it look better. So pop this in the oven, then you'll let it cool, and then we can add the back. Okay, so here it is out of the oven. So you can see that it has lightened a little bit, and I'm liking it a lot. I love how these leaves have a patched look. So if I bring this over, you can see the leaves have a nice patched look in this one as well, but this one's got like a really nice patched look. So I'm quite happy with that. So now that it's completely cool, you'll want to go around this edge and gently start lifting it up. You don't want to be aggressive with this because even though you have baked it properly, there is still a risk that you can break something. So just go slowly and go around the edge and lift it up, and then it will slowly start to release. There we go. So at the moment it is going to be quite flexible if you've baked it properly. That's fine because you only have one layer. This is why I'm saying no matter what your thickest setting is, just use your thickest setting and it will make the bowl sturdy enough. So next step is to take your craft knife and to gently scrape along these edges over here to get rid of any room that might be there. You can scrape with your blade or you could try and trim it like this. It's a little risky to do that, so I just like to scrape. And you just want to do that to get rid of any room that's there, because that can interfere with the process later on. And then once you've done that, you'll want to bring over some coarse sandpaper, maybe a 40 or an 80 grit sandpaper, so a really coarse sandpaper, and sand your bowl. Not the inside area where the nice stuff is, just this white area where we're going to put the backing on. Because we'll be putting some bacon bond on there, but scraping up the back helps quite a bit with getting it to stick nicely. So I'm almost done with this. And you just have to do it a little bit. There we go. Brush that off. And you can see it's really shiny back here. Then just bring over some sandpaper and start to scrape it up. And you don't have to get it completely scraped up, just scrape it up enough that you can see some matting on it. Okay, then you'll bring over some bacon bond. Any translucent liquid clay will work, but the bacon bond is my preferred type because it is it's pretty sticky. It's not very runny. This bottle's almost empty. I need to get another one. But there you just need a little bit, and then what you'll do is you'll smooth that along the surface. So that's not enough, but basically you'll just take your finger and smooth it along the surface so it gives it a little bit of a coat, so that it helps us stick our next layer of pearl white on a bit better. There we are. Now I'll bring over my pearl white, and this was rolled out in the thickest setting and it's primo. And just pop it on the back and press it from the tops to the sides down. Again, trying to avoid air bubbles. And so press thoroughly, make sure that you do a good job of this. There we go. And then just press against these sides thoroughly, because you want to get it worked into the room that we kind of have left. Then you can take your finger and kind of smooth along the sides here. And you can take your entire hand and just smooth it out and get rid of any bumps and things, because it will have stuck to your ceramic tile if you're using one. And so this is an excellent opportunity to just take your hand and smooth it out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly trim around. I'm not doing an excellent job of this, I just want to roughly trim. Get rid of that. And pick it up, and then I want to pinch this over the sides so that it's nice and smooth and proper. There we go. And then what I can do, I can smear along these sides so that I smear it off like this instead of trimming. and this will provide a better bond, and it will also make less of a seam. It will hide it much better. So just continue doing that, and then when that's done you'll want to smooth off these edges that you have torn away basically with your finger. But you want to be bringing it in, you don't want to be tearing it away like that, you want to be tearing it inwards so that it almost melts against your bowl. Okay, and let me just scoop away these. Okay. Then I'm just going to take my finger on my hand and I'm just going to smooth off over here. Make it nice and smooth. And just check from the top to see if you can see any white bits. If you can always get rid of those by just bringing your finger and bracing it against the side of the pot that had been baked and smoothing. And that will smooth it into place so that it's not peeking over the edge. This pot's quite important because this is what's going to make it look nice and even later on. Okay, then I'm just going to take this finger and smooth away any rim that might be there so that it's just nice and even. And then I'm going to look at it from this side, make sure that I can't see any white bits standing out, and I might even just take my blade and gently scrape along these edges to get rid of any white bits that are left. And I'm not pressing hard, I'm just pressing hard enough that I'm getting rid of any raw clay that's there. There we go. Okay, so that will work. Just take your finger and smooth off any bumps and grumps that you might have. And then we'll start applying the leaves like we did over here. And I've basically shown you that, so just choose your leaf and pop it on, and that's all you need to do. And continue, and again you can overlap. You can have the leaves sitting over here, it doesn't matter if it falls off the bowl like that, that's perfectly fine. Just stick on your leaves. There we go. So you've got all the leaves popped on. Now what you'll do is, just like before, you'll go and you'll add your texture in between those cracks. So it's basically the exact same as what we did last time, just that we do it on the back of the bowl. There we go. So now we have the texture all laid on. So now we can go about colouring it. And I'm going to colour it again the same way as I did the front. I don't want to change it up. So I'll start with that latte and continue just like I did before. Okay, so here is what it looks like now that I finished colouring it. I did take a wet wipe with some 99% alcohol and gently wiped it so that we could get a nice antiquing before I picked up the leaves. You can do that after you picked up the leaves if you want, but I just decided to do it now. Okay, so you'll just lift up these leaves. And I always love this part, so almost mesmerising to watch what it looks like once you lift up these leaves. Just have to be careful how you lift them up, because like there, they can break. And also you don't want to ding anything with your knife, so generally I like to go in the stem area to pick it up, because that area is quite deep and so there's less chance of me gouging the clay as I try to pick up the leaf. almost done. And you could leave it just like this if you wanted to, actually. I don't really want to, but it's just an idea. You could leave it like this. Maybe you want to antique this area if you wanted to. But what I want to do now is I just want to lay this down, and I want to bring over my blade, and I just want to trim away any excess that might be here, because we were pressing with the texture, so that you can see there's a bit of an excess piece there that we need to trim up. So I just want to do this before I start colouring the leaves. Okay, so you do just want to get rid of that bit, those bits and pieces. And now what you want to do is you want to colour these sides. Now some of it has been coloured because of me colouring the back, but you'll want to go back now with just a bit of your alcohol ink and colour it, because you don't want this blaring white to be left. So just take your brush and gently colour along these sides. Really easy. It works very well because the alcohol ink stains very nicely. There we are. I'm just getting rid of bits of clay that might be left. Okay, so that's all I need to do. Then what you want to do is you want to carry on colouring, like the leaves now need to be coloured with that nice blue that we did last time. So I'll do that and show you what it looks like when I finish colouring those. Okay, so here is what it looks like now that I have finished. And so I've just taken the wet wipe and just gently rubbed the entire bowl. And so you can see it, there are some patches of leaves that are lighter than others, and I basically just did the exact same thing that I did on the other side of the bowl. So you can see that this is basically how strong it looked before it was baked, and this is what it looks like after it's baked. So you can see that the colours dull quite a bit, which is nice. So this is going to turn a bit pastel in the oven. It's probably going to be a bit more blue than this one. This one's a bit more purple, which is fine. And I'm going to pop this in the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And before you do that, just gently, if you need to, come and tend to some areas if necessary. And then also you might want to just wipe the rim over here, because sometimes alcohol ink can seep over, and so you might want to just gently wipe around there to clean up any excess. So I'll pop that in the oven and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so here it is now that it is cooled and out of the oven, and so you can see on the back it has lightened up quite a bit, and it looks very similar to the front. So you can see that it is a little bit bluer than the front over here, but not by much. So you can see the alcohol inks do change as they bake. And so that's basically it. So I like to leave mine unvarnished. You don't need to do any sanding, because if you sanded you would remove quite a bit of the alcohol ink. So it's an idea. So if you wanted to remove some of the alcohol ink and maybe leave the texture with the alcohol ink, you could sand this, but personally I don't think it's necessary to sand if you've done a fairly good job of keeping away fingerprints and things like that, which I have, and it allows the texture to just shine through. You can also varnish this if you want, but I don't think it needs to be varnished because I have used pearl clay, and so it has quite a nice shine of its own without needing varnish. So if you have a look at these ones, I haven't actually used varnish on them. they're just the same as this one. And so those are my 3 bowls. So I'm really happy with them. You can use this technique for pendants if you want. You could use it to create maybe a collar necklace. A collar necklace might look really nice. And you can use these bowls for quite a few things. I like to use small ones like this for ring dishes, this one and this one. We like to put things like pine cones and things in there, and then put a little bit of scent in it so that it makes the room smell nice, and so they're going to be used as potpourri bowls, and so that's what I'm going to be using them for. But you can use these bowls for lots of different things. Maybe you want to use them to hold some of your supplies, your pencils, your rings, your jewellery, all sorts of things you can use them for. And so I do hope that that tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And if you liked it and you want to see more interesting videos, I post lots of cool tutorials on Patreon every single month, and I post a whole bunch of tutorials, bonuses, colour recipes and all sorts of things on there every single month. So I'll provide a link in the links below for you guys to check out, and it would really help me a lot if you guys would support me on there. So please do check that out, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.